Well, we've done a lot of good setup. When do we get to do the actual fun stuff? How about now? We're going to do some things in this video that help you get going with your local development that really actually makes developing start to be a lot easier and a lot of fun. So I've linked you to this document, the simple starter gist that you can find under my gists on GitHub. And we're just going to walk through this process so that you see what it looks like. So first of all, we're going to install Node.js. Which you can get here. Just the LTS version is just fine. Then we're going to have create our own project folder on our computer and make sure we have a source folder inside of it. Okay, so we had this little guy from earlier, but what we're going to do now is create that source folder. Okay, and it says here, place your actual site files for your project in here. So the files that relate to my actual site are everything except for my README file here. So I want to grab everything except for README and drag them into the source folder. Okay, so everything was here right inside of my root, but now the source folder is my new root folder. Okay, this is partially helpful in that we're going to want to run our server from a distinct place. It's nice to have only our site files in here, and the README would kind of be an extra thing there. It's important to have the README though, so organizing everything down a layer is helpful. The other thing you can do is there's no problem to use Git to track any of your other project assets. So if you have planning documents, design assets, you can certainly create other folders out here and track your changes even to those. In fact, Sketch has a really nice integration with GitHub that allows you to track changes inside of your Sketch files. Pretty slick. Worth looking into, but we digress. So we have moved everything into the source folder. Now we need to create files, so I'm going to switch over to Atom again, where you can see I have that source folder, and we're going to do the next step. So to create a file in Atom, we can just right-click on the folder that we want to create it in, and click New File. So we're going to call it Package. Oops, got to spell it right. Okay, now this is a thing related to NPM, the Node Package Manager, which is basically a set of configurations for our project. It contains some kinds of nuts and boltsy type things, about our project, version number, which you might have seen me update for another project in a different video, the description of the project. So we kind of want to match this to whatever we have in, sort of the like nuts and bolts things from our repo itself. So I'm just updating these things to match Sandbox. Actually, I'm going to copy that. Good way to avoid typos is to copy and paste. And then we're going to put my name here. Okay. Now there's other stuff here that there's plenty of time to come to understand everything else that's going on here. But that gets it up to date with what we need for our project. And that's prompted here in the name, description, and author and those things. All right. Next, it says add a gitignore file. So we're going to go here again out in our root and create a new file. Yep, gitignore. And we're going to copy this content and put it inside of this. Okay, so gitignore, this is a Git thing. We're about to install some packages, which are going to come down into this folder called Node Modules, and we do not want to include all those packages in our repo. They're documented somewhere else, and we just do not need them captured in our repo. In fact, this right here lists all the packages we need, and when we get into using Sass, we will have even more packages line up here. They are going to be helpful for us locally, but they just do not need to be committed as a part of our main repo. Okay. So we've got our gitignore set up. This is basically just going to help us ignore things that we don't need to be seeing, and it won't try to capture those in Git. That's a very helpful little thing. Okay, next we're going to go to our terminal window and type npm install. All right, so I have that terminal window up down here in Atom. Type in npm install. Oops, I'm in the wrong folder. I see it. It still has me in Corner Bakery, so I'm going to close this and open. You want to make sure you open a file from the project you want to open in terminal. And then now Atom knows which project I kind of have selected, and I add this, and now it shows, once it loads, Yep, there I am in Sandbox Corner Bakery. That's better. All right, so npm install, and this is going to run. Sometimes it takes a long time depending on your internet connection because it's downloading lots of files. And here's a little tidbit. Download speed is not just a matter of how much bandwidth you have, but also the more files that you have, the more separate little interactions it has to make. So you can sometimes find that it takes longer to download a package of 1,000 files than it does to stream a video. So the video might be a larger file, but the whole bunch of files like what we just did here with node modules is takes more time. So look at that. There's just tons and tons and tons of stuff that came down here in this node modules folder that's going to relate to all these nice little development things that we're going to have running for us. And that's why we don't want to commit them. We don't need all this stuff in our project, but they are here. But it's here and it's grayed out because we added that gitignore file that says, hey, ignore the node modules folder. Okay. It also is going to ignore this package lock.json file, which is just sort of a copy of this guy. So there we go. All right. All that to say, looks like all the packages installed. So the next step is to run npm start. You're going to love this part. If everything goes as planned, bada bing, bada bang, our site opened up automatically in a new browser window. There it is. It's right there, which doesn't seem all that miraculous, but what's super cool is that now it is continuing to run here in the terminal and it is watching files. Okay, we're going to come back to this little guy up here in a minute too. So we're watching the files. So that means when we open a file and make a change, let's say we want to do make the menu all caps or something like that. So we come in here, we change this to home. The browser automatically refreshed in the background and reflected our changes. Pretty slick, huh? So you could just have these two up kind of side by side. Just be making some changes. Oh yeah, and it's going to refresh and let you see your stuff. So let's say we want all hyperlinks to be bright red. Okay, if there was a hyperlink on the page, we should see it turn to red, but I don't have one in view. Let's see. So how about we put a big border on body. Okay, see, it's just refreshing right along as you work, which is super, super nice. Okay, now if there's any problems, you might get a little error message down here in the terminal. So you kind of want to keep an eye on that, especially if for some reason things don't refresh. You'll want to come back there and see if there's any errors. But you can tuck this away if it's taking up more space than you want. You can get it back by clicking not on the plus or the X, but the little one in between there. All right. Now, when you're done, you can just close this, close the terminal window, and that will stop the operation. But see, it is kind of still running, which might make the fans of your computer fire up, because it's using a lot of processing power to kind of keep watching all of your files. But just note that if you ever want to stop it and do something else in the terminal, you need to hit Control-C. Okay, so on a Mac, the control one is the one that has the bracket or the up wicket, whatever that thing's called, arrow, caret, that, and that will close the current operation, and you can always just fire it up again with npm start. Okay, so that's pretty much all you need to know in terminal, other than just finding your way around. But being able to call that npm start, that is one of the package scripts that we installed here. It's defined right there. And so it basically does this run sync, which runs this guy, which is the browser sync. Browser sync is the technology we're using to watch our files and refresh the browser in the background. Now, the other really super cool thing about this is when you've got your server running, it tells you it's at localhost 3000. Okay, so you can certainly go to localhost 3000, and that's what fired up right away. But it also gives you a local IP address, 10.0.1.31. Oops, if I entered it correctly, that is. Oops. Helps if I spell it right. Okay, so that is also here, and if you happen to have these up at the same time, they scroll in sync. What? So you could even pull this up in Firefox, localhost or the number, doesn't matter, and they stay in sync. So you can cross test across different browsers. You can even pull up your little smartphone and put that number in. As long as your smartphone is on the same Wi-Fi directory, you can put that address into your browser. And you can see the very same thing on your smartphone or tablet or any device on the same internet connection so as to access that. You may need to turn on web sharing in your preferences. So now you're good to go to actually do some local development with some really handy tools. We've covered terminal, we've covered Git, we've covered using NPM and using this package file to have some scripts running that allow you to have this kind of live refresh or hot reloading, they might call it. And you can even test it on multiple devices. So you are good to go. Move forward with your projects and keep tracking your work on Git, and I'll look forward to seeing what's going on.